right, let's go ahead and get started with Chapter 6 in Unit 10, and this is our break-even analysis. And our objective for today will determine the break-even prices and amounts using technology or algebra. Now, in our last chapter, Chapter 5, we actually took a look at our break-even points, but we didn't really go into detail as to how we got to those break-even points. So today we're going to do that. Here is our vocabulary for today. You can see quadratic formula is on there, and we will be using it quite a bit today. Example 1, it says determine the prices at the break-even points for the Picasso Paints lesson in 10.5. The expense function, remember, was E equals negative 3,500 plus 200, or P plus 238,000. Our revenue expenses were negative 500p squared plus 30p. And remember that what we're looking at, break even, is where the revenue equals the expenses. No money is made, but really no money was lost either. They just made exactly what they had in expenses. So if we set it equal, we've got negative 3,500p plus 200 and I'm actually kind of doing this. I'm going to move this around just because it'll save me a little bit later. So expense equals revenue. So for expense, we have negative 3,500p plus 238,000 equals the revenue, which is negative 500p squared plus 30,000p. So first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to move everything that's on the right over to the left. And so we're going to add 500p squared, and we're going to subtract 30,000p squared. And if you're okay with that, I'm going to do it all in one fell swoop. So we've got negative 30,000p. I'm going to put that right under there. And we've got a positive 500p squared. Now I did that so that it actually lines up. This side will now be 0 on the right, but the left, I'm just going to bring everything down. I've got 500p squared. I've got minus minus, so I'm going to add these, and I end up with negative 33,500p plus 238,000 equals 0. Now in order to find our break-even points, we're going to go ahead and use our quadratic formula. Now remember, our quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now that we've gotten this equation all into a, b, and c, it's going to make it a lot easier. So we've set it equal to 0 already. And we know that A equals 500, B equals negative 33,500, and C equals 238,000. When I plug these in, I'm actually going to do it as two different equations. Let me extend the page here. So the first one I'm going to do is negative b, which is negative 33,500, and I'm going to do the plus the square root of b squared, which is the negative 33,500 squared, minus 4 times a times c. And looking at this, remembering also this should have been, when I subtracted over, so negative and negative. So I end up with minus 4 times 500 times 238,000. All of that divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times 500. Now, when I work through this whole thing, I end up with approximately $58.92, which was our break-even point, if you'll remember from yesterday. Now we're going to go ahead and do the other side of that, which is the negative 33 minus a negative 33,500 minus, we did the plus, now we're going to do the minus. Everything else is the same. Negative 33,500 squared minus 4 times 500 times 238,000, all divided by 2 times 500. Now when I work that all together, I end up with approximately $8.08, which is exactly what it was yesterday when we did our calculations. If you remember from 10.5, we looked at that graph of the break-even analysis, and it was at points $8.08 and $58.92. So now I want you to go ahead and have the opportunity to practice this from start to finish at least once. So please press pause. Go ahead and solve these. See if you can get the break-even points, and then we'll come back and do it together. Okay, so now let's look at it here. We've got E equals R. Here's E and here's R. So we've got negative 2,000p plus 125,000 equals negative 600p plus 18,000p. And actually that should be p squared. Sorry about that. So it's going to be 600p squared. So now I'm going to go ahead and add the 600p squared over and subtract the 18,000p. So I'm going to do the 600p over here, and then it's going to be minus 18,000p plus 125,000. We end up with 600p squared minus 20,000p plus 125,000. Now plugging it in, my A, I'm going to put it over here. A is 600, B is negative 20,000, and C is 125,000. Plugging those values in, I get a negative 20,000 plus square root of negative 20,000 squared minus 4 times 600 times 125,000 all over 2 times 600. And when I work that through, I get approximately $25. Second equation, I did the plus, now I'm going to do the negative. So this part is the same. The only thing that's different is a negative goes here instead of a positive. Everything else is the same. So I've got negative 20,000 squared minus 4 times 600 times 125,000 all over 2 times the 600. When I work that out, I get approximately $8.33. Now it also asks us to graph this. So let's go ahead and go through the process of graphing it. So we'll get our graph on here. And what we're going to do is we're going to plug in both of our equations. So our expense equation is the negative 2,000p. In this case, we're going to use x plus 125,000. Our second equation is negative 600x squared, so we're going to hit the x and then the square key, plus 18,000p. and then we're going to go ahead and graph them. So there's our expense equation. And it looks like we're going to have to move our window around a little bit. I'm going to try real quick, see if it does what I would like it to do. We'll see what it does. Nope, we're going to have to do it ourselves. So our window here is going to be 0 to, let's say, $70, just like we had. Our minimum is going to be 0, and our maximum, let's put 300,000 and see how that comes out. And sometimes that's what we do. It's just kind of a trial and error thing. And let's see what happens here. Oh, I did it again. I actually did this when I was practicing. So that should be our P. Our P should be X, so make sure you do that. It should graph correctly now. There we go. So, now if we click on our trace, we're going to come up here, and we see that our values we had was at 25. Well, here you can see 25. I'm looking at about 71,109. Now coming around at about the 833, somewhere around there. And so those are my break-even points. So we can see within a few pennies, they're both coming out the same. All right, example 2. Draw the revenue and expense equations for the Picasso Paints and find the break-even points. So all we're going to do now is take the value that we had. So we have expense equals negative 3,500, and that was P. Well, now we're saying that that P is at 808, or $8.08, plus the $238,000. When we multiply that all out, we get 209,720. For our revenue equation, we had the negative 500 times the price, which is 808 squared, plus 30,000 times the 808. When we multiply that through, we end up with 209,756.80. So you can see here that they aren't exact, but they should be very, very close to each other. So that's on the low end. On the high end, we have negative 3,500 times 58.92, which was our high-end break-even point, plus the 238,000 equals 31,780. Whereas here, the negative 500 times the 58.92 plus the 30,000. And I end up with $31,816.80. So again, not exact, but pretty close to each other. All right, go ahead, press pause, think about this for just a moment, come back and we'll finish this lesson out. Okay, how could you have improved on the error when calculating the expense and revenue? So what it's saying is, how could we have gotten these amounts here? How could we have gotten those to be more exact? And what it is as we're coming out with the price, when you figured it when you figured it and calculated it into the calculator, we rounded it to the 2 cents because that's how we usually do. We think of 8 cents. We don't think of 845 cents. If we had gone out further in our decimals, in these areas here, if we had gone 8.084523, whatever the number would have been, it would have yielded us closer here in our values. And if we had done it exact, they should be exact. And we're not going to do this last particular example here because it's due to graphing. So we're all done here. Good luck, good job everyone, and I'll see you in the next unit.